you very much, Robert Nolan. I have to say, I do like the problem of evil. I find it hard to imagine a loving God who also made me ginger. Our next speaker this evening, presenting for the side of Christianity, is the University of Auckland Master of Arts student majoring in philosophy, Tom Yates. Tom Yates is a Master of Arts student at the University of Auckland with a Bachelor of Theology from Laidlaw College and a Graduate Diploma in Arts from the University of Auckland. He is currently employed as a graduate teaching assistant in the philosophy department and has tutored in philosophy of religion, problems in epistemology, and critical thinking. Outside of university life, Tom enjoys long walks on the beach. Sorry, wrong profile. Tom is actively engaged in speaking and debating on matters of Christian theology and philosophy. Please welcome Tom Yates.
Thanks. I first just want to say it's quite a privilege to debate Professor Nola, even if we part ways quite significantly, right? I enjoyed having him as a supervisor for a research project I once did on a cosmological question. But let me now take a more critical angle toward him and his thinking. So I'll do that just first, maybe spend 2 minutes or so responding to some of his points, and then I'll continue to build the positive case that Zach and I are making. So, to begin with, he asked the question of, oh, it's too restricted, this question of Christianity versus atheism. We're only focusing on one religion. But yeah, so what? These are two live options in the world at the moment. And we've isolated two worldviews, you might say, and we're comparing their relative merits, right? And so we can do that. We can question whether one is more rational than the other by focusing on two. It's like to get two chess players together to play a chess game, right? Two chess players are playing along. Just because they're playing together and seeing who can win doesn't mean there aren't other chess players out there, right? So that just seems like a random red herring. He also asks, so what does Christianity explain better than Judaism and Islam? Well, first of all, I think the historical evidence for Jesus' resurrection and so on, so this historical stuff. But again, this is just an irrelevant point. We're comparing Christianity versus atheism or naturalistic atheism, right? And so that just seems like an irrelevant kind of point to draw. He asks, what kind of Christianity are we defending, essentially, all different kinds of Christianity? Well, we're defending a scientifically informed sort of mere Christianity. Turns out that actually there's a lot of commonality, common agreement on the core beliefs of Christians, right? Even among Catholics, Eastern Orthodox, and Protestants. We're just defending a mere, what C.S. Lewis called a mere Christianity, but it's scientifically informed. He claims that atheism doesn't explain anything. I think it's false. Atheism is the positive claim that there is no God. And that's accepted by many atheist philosophers, okay? And that entails a whole bunch of positive claims too. That itself is a positive claim. So the positive claim that it could entail would be the only personal beings that there are inhabitants within the universe. That's an entailment of there is no God, okay? But that's a positive claim, and what it does is present certain explanatory constraints on, trying to explain certain phenomena, and Zach and I are actually attempting to show you what sorts of phenomena, sort of meta-level structural phenomena that would need explaining that we think atheism just can't really explain. That atheism and I think just finally a last point to be made against Nola at this point is that, so he claims that scientific naturalism is kind of like the sum of all sciences, okay? And that's his worldview, or something like that. Well, first of all, naturalism in philosophy, the way it's used, refers to an actual worldview or a metaphysical hypothesis that says that only nature exists, okay? So that entails a whole bunch of things. So that's a certain kind of atheism, okay? Now, we can use his definition, sure, of scientific naturalism, but it doesn't point to atheism over theism. If you're talking about the sum of all sciences, we claim that science is neutral with respect to these different worldviews, okay? Philosophy comes in and goes, oh look, these sort of scientific points point to one worldview over the other, but that's philosophy. That's philosophy of science, that's not science itself. Okay. So I think that's the dilemma between somehow science and Christianity, I think is just a false one. Anyway, I'll leave the problem of evil stuff. I'll respond to that perhaps later, or I can leave it to Zach. But let me start constructing a more positive case So I want to continue what Zach has been doing. He's been demonstrating that naturalism has an incredibly hard time explaining certain fundamental features of the universe. And we're claiming that Christianity actually is abounding an explanation of these things. I want to add sort of two more features, sort of structural features of the universe that we think naturalistic atheism can't really explain, and that is consciousness and morality. So I begin with consciousness, the so-called hard problem of consciousness, as David Chalmers put it. And in his words, consciousness poses the most baffling problem in the science of the mind. There is nothing that we know more intimately than conscious experience, but there is nothing that is harder to explain. So that really sets up the problem. And here too, it looks like naturalism is a worldview that's on the run. More and more philosophers are finding themselves disaffected, I think, with the physicalist story, that consciousness can somehow be reduced to just physical matter, right? Well, why is that, you ask? Well, to begin with, how does a certain complex functional arrangement of physical particles, right, atoms, whatever you like to say is at the bottom, give rise to the rich experience of consciousness and sensations that we have, that animals also have? Reductive physicalism seems to predict that with enough Lego bricks, you could make a rationally self-conscious mind, right? There's nothing in principle that seems false about that. It's all about inputs and outputs and interactions within the head if you take a functionalist line. But that just seems absurd. Consciousness also essentially involves sensations, like seeing red, right? And also it seems to involve what you call intentionality. So something being about something else. But no physical object has sensations like a Lego brick, and neither is a Lego brick about you or about this lecture. That just doesn't make sense, right? And so we can add to this case. We can conceive of people like Frank Jackson's Mary, the neuroscientist, who has sort of learned all the microphysical facts about seeing redness, but haven't experienced redness themselves, where to do so would be to sort of learn something new. You learn all the physical facts, but if you haven't seen it, right? That seems like the first time you see it, you're going to be learning something new, but that then just contradicts the thesis that all conscious facts produce physical facts. We can also conceive of nearly identical beings to us with the exact same physical parts and properties as us, who don't have sensations while they're in consciousness, peace and intentionality in their concepts. They're called zombies. Chalmers calls these zombies, and the conceivability of zombies threatens the necessary connection required by physicalism between physical functional complexity and consciousness. So it seems clear that there are these irreducible states of consciousness, perhaps seen most exceptionally in human minds, and the sort of rational self-consciousness that humans have. But then if that's true, what could explain them? And sort of explain a world with such an odd sort of multi-storied structure, bottom level physical stuff, top level sort of metaphysical, or however you like it, irreducible stuff. I've just shown that naturalistic atheism cannot appeal to any bottom-up explanations of consciousness, but if it can't, then one has to give up what atheist philosopher Helen Stewart has claimed as one of the three powerful orthodoxies of Western naturalistic philosophy. So it turns out that it doesn't all boil down to physics. But such irreducible, causally charged, conscious properties just look extremely odd on atheism. Even if they are inevitably produced by physical complexity, the zombie argument threatens the necessary connection required by physicalism, rendering these properties contingent and so requiring explanation. Either way, there must still be laws governing the emergence of these sort of conscious properties from microphysical properties, but laws require an explanation, as Zach argued. Again, there must be some sort of law. So the postulation of a necessarily existent God, however, who designed a world with both microphysical states and these sort of emergent irreducible states, I think is a natural answer to this contingency. A good God would plausibly desire to create a world including not just elegant mechanisms, functioning in a proper way, but also experiences. Fully experiences. It's good to experience things in the world. And I think a good God would give humans this kind of high-order consciousness that you see in sort of rational self-consciousness. And I think that seems to be something that's required for morally significant freedom. In order to be morally responsible, it seems that we need to be conscious in a significant way. And the point about morality brings me to my next final and my sort of final point, which is that we've got this stuff, we've got morality, and morality needs to be explained, and we just think naturalistic atheism is a really poor job of it. Christianity does. So moral claims are claims like you should not torture babies for fun. Rape is wrong. It is right to tell the truth, right? So, but the question to be asked here is, on atheism, just what are these claims? Are they simply subjective expressions of attitudes that we have, right? Bad attitudes or emotions that we have, or maybe commands that we want to make on someone else? And so, in that sort of case, they wouldn't be either true or false. They'd be subjective. I want to say that I find it really hard to believe that anyone really thinks that. I mean, what about the Holocaust? What about gay bashing? What about rape? Like these are sad things, right? We all feel so strongly about it. Relativism seems to entail that we can't really protest against anyone doing something that we sort of believe is wrong, or think is wrong. But it would be sort of something like trying to protest your friends eating mushrooms just because you think you don't like mushrooms. Essentially, if morality boils down to these sorts of attitudes, that's what morality is. But that seems really problematic. But if these claims are somehow objective, and so it can either be true or false, we need to ask, okay, what exactly are they, especially on atheism? So the atheist seems to be stuck on the horns of a dilemma. Either give up naturalism and embrace a kind of atheism according to which the basic moral principles or moral properties just floating somewhere and they somehow connect with us, so it's ethical non-naturalism. Or you embrace horn 2, ethical naturalism. But this seems to be problematic. It seems to sort of expand naturalism beyond its usual sort of limits, which is to science, right? It also seems to imply purpose, to be talking about morals as something about what it means to be a good human, and to do so would be sort of to appeal it seems that it would imply that if you're going to bring in some consideration about what it would be good for a human to do or bad for a human to do, you're implying purpose, and this seems to imply a kind of purpose giver. And it seems true too for ethical naturalism that that morality seems to clash with what's naturally good for humans to do. Okay, there seems to be. So why do the morally good thing and sacrifice your life to save the elderly lady who's just about to be hit by a truck? You might ask. So when ethical naturalism is conjoined with the theory of evolution, we can ask what survival value or form of species promotion is exemplified in saving an elderly lady. So those options just seem pretty difficult. Whereas if you're a Christian, you claim that in fact moral duties and values are sort of tied to God's intentions, God's nature, and these are intentions for how the world should be and how we should live. I hope Zach and I have made clear that our simple postulate of God is able to easily explain away a huge array of fundamental sort of meta-level data that we think naturalistic atheism just cannot explain. Naturalists cut themselves with Occam's razor, right? They pull out the crucial piece of the Jenga puzzle that's needed to explain a whole bunch of certain important meta-level features. And so it seems clear that Christianity, by virtue of that, offers a far better account of reality.